Yes, your questions are up there.
Hello. My husband hasn't been working for almost a year now, and I don't know what to do or how to behave with him at all.
What preceded this? What caused him to stop working?
At first, he was drinking with his friends. He had this problem. Then it seemed to improve. He was working. We wanted a child. I told him that what he was earning wasn't enough and he should periodically look for another job. Then at one point, he just quit his job. And now it's been a year, and he still can't find a job.
It was a big mistake on your part to do that.
How? He's the one who quit. I just said that he should periodically look for another job, but I didn't tell him to quit his current job.
Well, you kind of helped him to quit.
Oh, so it's my fault after all. Is that what I am hearing?
Well, to some extent, it's not entirely your fault, but to some extent.
But I work. I earn money. I support the family.
That's all understandable, but men have different inner abilities when it comes to earning. Thankfully, he was at least working, even while he was drinking. It's a blessing he was working at all. And if you kept expressing that it wasn't enough, this might be why he's not working now, because everything he finds has a small salary. He feels can't satisfy you. He simply can't find something better.
Well, maybe that's true. I just asked him to find a job with at least his previous salary. But he's not looking for any job at all now. I think these are just excuses. That's all.
Raise your hand, whoever is talking to me. I can't see well. Let me look now. Well, yes, these are just excuses, 100%. The man has simply lost himself. You need to pray. You need some inner strength. Please understand that this is your fate at work. We talk about this in the lectures. That's how your fate is acting, and you should first accept it. Then overcome fate through prayer. You can set conditions for him. Let him know it's not possible to live like this. If you continue to just endure without changing anything, the same situation will repeat itself, and he will continue to behave this way. Then your patience will run out, and you'll just leave. The same thing will happen again, which we have just talked about. I sense you are close to that point. Your patience is running out. You can set conditions, live separately for some time. You don't need to leave or say that you are leaving. Just live apart and set conditions. A man only understands actions.
It doesn't work on him. I've already tried everything. The carrot and the stick. I also set some conditions.
How can he live without money? Let's say if he leaves?
His mother helps.
Well, that's a different issue. You need to come to an agreement with his mother.
We do. He goes to his friends. Before, he didn't allow himself to be absent from home for weeks.
You need to ask his mother not to give him money.
She doesn't give him any money. We agreed. She doesn't give him money. Then he disappears for a week with his friends. He might turn off his phone. Then he returns like nothing happened. Everything's fine.
A tough nut to crack.
I've tried everything.
My dear, everything is fine with you. You just need prayer. God will help you. Prayer is needed. Prayer will first calm your heart. Then you will change your attitude toward him. And then he will begin to change too. I'm looking inside your heart now and see that you struggle with him in your heart. You're rebelling against him. This extinguishes him. He's losing you, so to speak. A man draws happiness from a woman. When a woman trusts a man and believes in him, he copes. But if she rebels, if she is upset or angry with him, she extinguishes him. He becomes weak. Now he's losing you because a woman is mentally stronger than a man. If a woman doesn't support her husband, he loses himself. It's better to change your tactics and kindly ask him, please, I'm asking you.
I feel like I have done that, but it hasn't helped. I really have no patience left.
Live separately. Don't wait until the last moment. Live separately. Rest. I feel you're at the breaking point. A little more and you'll just collapse. Your psyche will collapse. Then you'll leave altogether, and you will be alone for a long time after. You just need to live separately for some time. A week is nothing for men. He only starts to realize after about 5 days, where did my wife go?
He's the one who leaves, not me. He goes to his friends. He just leaves, and that's it.
And why does he leave?
I don't know why. He starts hiding from me. His friends come to him, for example, and he says, "My wife will be home at such and such time. Let's go."
You see, he's afraid of you. That's what I'm talking about.
That's it. He starts running away from me.
Look, this is dangerous. It means you're putting too much pressure on him. You need to be more careful. Maybe find a different approach. If he's already running away from you, it means you're pushing too hard. I even have a story like this. One woman says, "Dr. Torsunov, I don't quite understand. You talk about educating a husband and distancing yourself from him a little bit." She says, "I stayed at my mother's for a week. He calls me and says, 'Listen, distance yourself more, stay at your mother's for another week. I've rested so much.'" That is, she herself had worn him out there.
I periodically go to another city. I'm actually from another city, and I go there. For 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Nothing changes?
At first, everything seems good. I try not to call, so he calls me himself. He checks in. I try not to bother him, not to call. I ask, "What are you doing there?" Just casually, resting. "No, I miss you. I miss you." I respond, "Improve yourself. We need to find the right path somehow. How's the job search?"
It seems to me he's become a little better with you, just a little better than he was before.
Yes, he's become better. It was worse before. Now it's much better.
That's it. Continue. Everything is going well for you. He's getting better. In about a year and 2 months, a good period will start for him. Wait until that time. He will start to improve significantly in a year and 2 months. According to his karma, he can only find a job in 3 months.
I think I'll find strength.
In 3 months, he will find a job according to his fate. He's in a bad period now. This period with work lasts 5 months for him. 6 months ago, he had a good period. He could still find a job. Now for 5 months, he can't find a job. Another 2 months, and he will have an opportunity again, but he won't have a salary like yours. It will be less.
Will it be more later?
If he gets on the right path in life, he can develop strongly. He's a good person. He's a sincere and good person.
That's what I want. I know he's good.
But he hasn't awakened as a man yet. I told you that men need to be awakened. He hasn't awakened as a man. He's not behaving like a man. He doesn't have male strength yet. He hasn't awakened. This takes time. When a man awakens, he starts a different life. He quickly changes himself and his life.
We just had a period when he sometimes told me that I was overwhelming him with my love. Well, before, sometimes it was like that. I would rush home from work to him.
You're not overwhelming him with love now. No, you're overwhelming him with education. I know for sure. I see you and your strength. That's why he's afraid of you and runs away to his friends. That's the reason for everything.
Do I need to be softer? Yes? Is that what I understand?
It's hard to say. You're suffering too. How to be softer if someone is living at your expense? You just need to pray. You need to be stronger. That is, you lose your temper because you lack strength. You need spiritual life. You lack God. You lack inner strength. You're doing everything right. Everything is normal. He is changing for the better, but you lack inner strength. That's the answer. You need to be closer to God now, and everything will work out for you. Overall, your life has a positive dynamic. Even with his mother, your relationship used to be worse. It was really quite bad. Now it's good. You've restored it, so everything is fine.
My son is doing poorly in school. He used to study well, but now he is having a tough time.
Now he's also going through a difficult period. Yes, it's very difficult for him to study. He's under a lot of pressure.
People say he's a very positive and good child.
Yes, he's a good child. Don't pressure him. In about 6 months, he'll start studying well. You see what a difficult period you're going through now. You're facing challenges everywhere. Prayer is essential. Don't pressure anyone now. Not your son, not your husband. Focus more on your spiritual life. Take care of yourself or you might have a breakdown.
Thank you very much.
Be patient and wait. This period will pass and things will improve. For at least 3 months, don't put pressure on anyone. Spend more time alone. Sometimes there are periods in life when a person must be cautious. Breakdowns can happen. Now let's take the next question. Your turn, the lady nearby. Yes, you.
Hello, Dr. Torsunov. My question is about my husband. I have the opposite issue. My husband works too much. He's like an Iron Man.
This represents the next stage. We talked about 3 stages of development for men. In the first stage, a man is not awakened. He either has bad habits or he doesn't work. He is lazy, and so on. In the second stage, a man is overstrained. He works too much. He gets tired from this work, but he can't give it up. This is simply a certain stage of human development. A man's development goes through 3 stages. The first stage, he can't force himself to live well. The second stage, he's overstrained. The third stage is when he finally reaches a balanced, harmonious relationship with himself. But to get there, spiritual life is necessary. One can only move from the second stage to the third by studying how to live correctly.
My husband is a railway worker, and his father taught him in childhood that trains must always run. If no one else can operate them, he takes over and does it himself. He believes it's his mission, his purpose. He sleeps with 2 phones, he wakes up often, he might get up at 1 a.m. to work. He goes. Then he realizes that he wants to spend time with me and the family.
Besides the railway, he has many other interests too. I feel sorry for him. He's wearing himself out. He sleeps very little. He's truly a good person.
He is dependable. People value and respect him, but we suffer.
This is how a man's nature is designed. If a man has found some purpose in life, he gives himself completely to it. This is his nature. This is how a man should live.
So this is normal? Should I simply endure it?
No, it is not entirely normal because sooner or later he will break down. Men at this stage have breakdown points. Sooner or later he can break down. You shouldn't just endure, you should develop yourself as a person. When the sun rises, shadows disappear. Your man will also change, mirroring your inner development. I have many examples, including from the woman who spoke before. She started to change seriously about a year and a half ago. Her husband has also begun to change. I think you have just started listening to lectures, right?
Not quite. Well, maybe a year or a year and a half ago. Not so recently.
Well, you've probably been working on yourself seriously for about 6 months, doing something significant, right? In about a year, your husband will start to change. Work on yourself and develop, and he will start to change too.
Dr. Torsunov, my question is it possible for him to change his field of activity? That is, can he develop in a different way? There are many paths in life, but he's taking this one, which seems difficult to me.
Do you want us to decide now what he should do? Yes, it would be as if we say, that's it. What's his name?
Alexei.
Alexei, that's it, Alexei. You'll work there.
Well, I'm not saying that. I'm afraid of taking on this responsibility, and I don't.
You will never be able to do this. If a man has found himself in something, it's simply impossible to convince him that he needs something else. This is his path, and he will keep going there. He's no longer concerned about money or health or anything else. You have no options that can pull him into another activity. There are simply no options.
I feel the same.
That's it then, calm down.
Also, Dr. Torsunov, how do you see our future? Will we continue to work to the point of exhaustion?
Your future depends on you. If you start to develop gradually, he will start to develop too. Every person can have a bright or a dark future. It all depends on their choice. No one can see this. If I tell you your future depends on some old grumpy woman who can curse you, will you believe it? Your future depends only on you. If you develop yourself, he will also start to change. I told you yesterday that in a family, the woman starts to change first. The man follows her. It's always like this for everyone. First, the woman changes. Then when the man starts to change, the woman should relax. However, you can't relax right now because it's your turn. You must do your part now.
Thank you.
A hand is raised in the back, please.
Hello, Dr. Torsunov. May I address you?
Raise your hand so I can see you. There was someone else behind you. And you too? There are a bunch of hands raised. Okay, sit down.
I'm not married. Can I ask you when I will have a favorable period in my personal life?
You need to work on your development. There has already been a long favorable period and it has passed. Before that, you left someone about 10 years ago, right? Or how long ago was it?
I was married for 18 years.
You left your husband. How long ago was that?
3 years ago. We kept getting back together and then breaking up again. Actually, we separated 10 years ago.
Ah, you left him then. That's when your bad fate started. I see. In about 8 months, you can meet someone. You don't have a particularly unfavorable period. You just need to focus on your development and figure everything out. You need to understand what happened. You lived incorrectly. When people live incorrectly, they exhaust their relationships. We'll be talking about this in today's lecture. Relationships become very difficult to the point of being unbearable. You don't have a situation where you must remain alone. I don't see that.
Thank you.
The woman in the back with blonde hair. No, even further behind.
Good evening, Dr. Torsunov. I have a question. Is it worth living with a husband for the sake of children if patience has already run out?
You should never torture yourself in a relationship with someone. Living with a person doesn't mean suffering next to them. Living with a person means you can live separately for some time and together for some time. The main thing is there should be no cheating. Simply suffering next to a person doesn't help, especially for a woman. She burns herself out and then leaves him completely. That's a path to nowhere for her. Therefore, the thinking that you must stay together until the very end and then separate is incorrect. You can only shake up a man by taking some serious actions. For example, if he's doing something wrong in life, words won't convince him. You need some kind of action to wake him up, to make him understand that something is wrong. A man needs a strong influence to affect him. So it's worth living together, but it's not worth suffering. You can live together, you can live separately and set conditions, but you shouldn't suffer. You can even live together but not communicate, for example.
We have tried it for months. We've also lived separately. It's like going in circles, everything seems fine. But then...
This means that you lack spiritual strength. It's not your husband who's at fault, but your life. It means you're not living correctly. In your life, there's no God, no faith, no purity, no depth, and no victory over fate. That's it. This is the answer.
There is faith. There is God. There is a husband, but he doesn't try to change. When I compromise somewhere, he becomes completely insolent, acting as if he's always right. I said so. Woman, be silent.
You don't realize that if a person has God and purity in their life, everything around them changes. This is 100% fact. I have a half-sister who once lived incorrectly. She had problems. She moved to another country, and we didn't even know each other. We only met once as children. We were not acquainted. She had forgotten my name and everything else. At some point, she started listening to my lectures. My cousin started listening to my lectures. Then she found out from her father that I was her cousin. We began communicating. I know many examples where, when a person works on themselves, their close ones start to change. They start changing on their own. But I don't know a single case when a person prays and has faith and nothing changes. So your practice is incorrect. You're not practicing properly. You're not doing it right.
What should I do then?
Listen to lectures, study how to do all this properly. You will never find a better man for yourself. The only issue is that you don't understand how to behave like a woman should in this context. He is very categorical, tough, but he is a very good person, as you well know. You will never find a better person for yourself.
Thank you.
You just need to teach him. Sometimes a man needs to be taught how to live and how to treat a woman. Men don't know this, they simply don't understand. It seems to a woman that everything is clear, but to a man nothing is clear. He doesn't know how to behave properly with women. A man needs to study this seriously. The most important thing to understand, and this applies to everyone, is that the first step in helping a man change is accepting his character. As I mentioned yesterday, a man's protective energy layer is very tough. Externally he seems very tough, but internally a man is very soft. To get inside him and influence him, his life component, to start changing him quickly and actively, a woman must first accept his character. She must accept him just as he is. Accept it. Acceptance requires spiritual life, because accepting any person, man or woman, is very difficult. Every person has a character, and this character can be a source of torment. Every person. Some people think, now I'll find someone who will bring me constant happiness. These are just fairy tales. It doesn't work like this. First comes the honeymoon, when people enjoy each other. Then this enjoyment ends, and character surfaces. A woman torments a man with her emotions. She has a very emotional character and a hot temper. A man torments a woman with his roughness, his assertiveness. A man has a very assertive, destructive character. A woman has a very emotional character. It destabilizes her psyche. A man has a very destructive character. It puts pressure on a person. This is a man's character. Every man has these character traits. Every woman has these character traits. But if we practice spiritual acceptance, let's say, I accept my wife's character and her emotionality, then she relaxes towards me and starts to behave better. She begins to relate to me differently. She feels that I'm a good person and starts to behave differently with me. Similarly, a man who accepts an emotional woman and her emotional character without treating her harshly will find that she relaxes and changes her behavior. But you need to start with yourself, not with him, because he doesn't listen to lectures. You do. I always tell my listeners, who do you think God chose to be the first in your family? The answer is, the one who listens to the lectures was chosen to be the first. He chose you. He gave you the knowledge. So change yourself. Accept your loved one. Learn to do it.
Does that mean accepting humiliation?
Humiliation is just your emotion. There is no humiliation in accepting a person. If it feels humiliating, it means that you are not truly accepting him, but pretend to accept. Acceptance itself is not humiliation, it's an inner feat. Real acceptance requires inner strength. But to have strength, you need prayer. You need to accumulate it in your heart first. When you choose to accept a person, like agreeing with your husband, it can feel like humiliation because you're afraid of losing him. It wears you down gradually. But if you can agree with him purely out of love and acceptance, it's more like a game. You understand? Imagine your child is being capricious and you say, "My dear, everything will be fine." Well, so you're kind of playing with him. There's an element of play in love. It's the same with a man. Yes, 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 yes. You can say that to him, and he will calm down immediately. But at the same time, your heart may not accept what he's saying. But it's not necessary. It's enough for a man to see that his wife behaves humbly with him. It immediately puts him at ease. This is because a woman's psyche has a hot nature for a man. It can be overwhelming for a man. It burns the man, causing him to tense up and become very strict next to a woman. Women's emotions are very hot by nature. This puts pressure on the man. For example, a woman emotionally says to another woman, "I told him, just the same as I'm telling you. What do you think? Did I say it badly?" The other one says, "No, my dear, you said it well." But you see, he immediately got tense. A man can't handle a woman's emotions, but a woman can handle another woman's because women have the same strength of emotions. Men and women differ. A man is much weaker emotionally. He can't digest a woman's emotions. It's very hard for him. He becomes tough, strict. That's just how his defensive reaction works.
Maybe he just no longer wants to live with me, which is why he behaves so rudely and harshly.
You see, you don't even understand him. You live together, he's your close person, but you don't really understand him. He's behaving rudely now because he's deeply exhausted. He's experiencing mental tension in his life right now. I don't know the reason or the details. I see that he's very tired. His rudeness is his defensive reaction. I'm explaining to you now how his psyche works. Do you know if he gets very tired or not?
For the last 2 weeks, he's been on vacation and still behaves rudely.
This is just a defensive reaction.
How can I help him? Should I change? Give in to him and everything?
You need to understand that your psyche is 6 times stronger than his. If you don't yield in any way, he feels like he's being broken. When you don't give in, you're breaking him. Yesterday I mentioned that you need to give in first, and then everything will still be your way.
He says one thing, for example, but later doesn't follow through. I tell him, "You said it like this. Shouldn't you stick to it?" When a man makes a statement, he should keep his word. These are my remarks to him.
Don't you think you make too many remarks?
Probably.
What do you think? If you torment a person, will they still want to live with you or not?
Is divorce the solution?
Let's consider this. Imagine you get divorced now. You will stay alone for 4 years. He finds himself a young woman within 6 months. Would you be okay with such a scenario? This is how it will be. Therefore, family energy is female energy, not male. A woman should learn to build relationships. The first thing she should do is learn to accept her husband's character because changes come through acceptance. Right now, you don't accept your husband's character. You're like Mount Vesuvius. You rebel against him in your heart, and this rebellion destroys his psyche, tenses him. It's very difficult for him to communicate with you because of this. But if you had accepted, he would have relaxed, and you could have changed him gradually. But you don't want to accept. You are rebelling. This rebellion is also fueled by the fact that you've already decided to leave him, but you're still a bit afraid. And you think, why am I living with him? I already decided to leave. Why should I continue living with him? You're saying this to yourself internally, isn't that right?
Yes.
And he feels this. It's very difficult for him to be with you because of this, but you only see your side of the coin. You see that he's harsh with you, rude, doesn't keep his promises. You only see your side. You don't see that he was very tired, and only now during vacation has he started to rest. You don't see that he doesn't receive any support from you at all. Well, you're not fulfilling your function as a wife. You're rebelling against him in your heart. You understand? Because you want from him what you should expect from God. A person receives strength from God and gives their strength to their loved ones. That's how one should live. But you want to receive this strength from him, and he's not God. You just need to change your life, start living differently, and everything will fall into place because he is, in general, a good person, and you are a good person. You just don't know how to live correctly, that's all.
Thank you.
I would like you to ask questions specifically on this topic now, because I always say, if I have hemorrhoids and you have hemorrhoids, it will be very interesting for us to talk about it, but it will be boring for everyone else. So let's leave our hemorrhoids aside for now and focus on the answers to the things we've just discussed. We have half an hour before the lecture starts. We're now open to any questions. What are we talking about right now? We were talking about love, how to maintain love, how to revive it, how to make it live in our family, how to overcome difficult periods in life. What should I do to let go of this desire for infatuation? And how should I behave so that I don't fall in love with anyone except my wife? Let's ask questions. Your question, please. Use the microphone, please.
You said that when everything gets overwhelming, you need to detach.
To detach means not expecting happiness from your close one and not getting into conflicts as much.
Yes, I understand that. But you also mentioned earlier in the lecture that a woman's spiritual path is closed until she restores her relationship with her husband, if there is a specific situation.
It's incorrect to think that way. I revoke your understanding.
Did I misunderstand something?
Yes. Look, improving relationships is very difficult. That means they can deteriorate at any moment. It doesn't mean your path to a relationship with God is closed because I was talking about something else. If you're doing something against your husband's will, then that's when you close your path.
But he will be against it. Look, there's a quarrel happening. Both sides are irritated, like you said. If I try to detach in that moment, prayer doesn't work. First of all, I'm irritated, and so is my husband.
You need to step aside, don't continue the conversation, stay silent, don't engage.
I'll be quiet, okay, but he's around nearby.
Well, then lightly tap his chest with your fists, tease him, and then apologize afterward.
You need to improvise, you need to pull yourself together.
If you can't detach, keep teasing him. No problem, you'll repent later. When you're able, you'll repent. If you can't step aside, if you feel like you need to say everything, then say it.
Even now, sometimes I step away.
Well done.
But then my husband comes up and keeps going. He can stay silent, but he's still irritated in his silence. I don't know what to do next. I explode and everything I'm thinking. I say,
Even in mutual love, the only thing left is torment. Why is there only torment? Because of the strong expectation of happiness from your close one. And as long as this expectation is so strong, you won't change anything. It's impossible. So, argue, ask for forgiveness, live as you can, and fill yourselves with God. When your expectation from God becomes stronger, then you'll lose the desire to prove something to your close one, to argue with them. The very interest in arguing will disappear, and you'll accept them as they are. He's so persistent because that's how men are wired. That irritates you. He acts a bit rudely. Lord, how does a woman behave? What a nightmare. That's because he doesn't understand how to behave with a woman. Am I describing this correctly?
yes, that's how it is.
But then you'll realize that this is how a man is. He's not that bright. He doesn't understand how a woman works. He doesn't behave quite right, but it's okay. I forgive him because you are filled with God. And if you're not filled, you won't be able to forgive. Well, then argue with him and repent later. If you feel like arguing, argue. Because there are cases when a woman doesn't argue, she just tolerates, and then explodes. Look, there she is tolerating it. Then one day she says, I'm done. I'm never coming back. That's worse. You can't do that. You have to say everything and then apologize.
Afterwards, there's often a long feeling of guilt.
It's fine. You're guilty. Suffer. Don't give it too much significance. You're idealizing everything. You want to avoid arguing. That's impossible. Because only someone who doesn't expect anything from their loved one can avoid arguing. You don't even understand what I'm talking about right now. I'm saying, don't expect anything from him. You don't understand. You're thinking, I don't expect anything. What should I expect? You're expecting, and that's why you argue. If you didn't expect anything, you wouldn't argue. You'd accept everything and agree with him. I don't argue with my wife at all. I simply don't expect anything from her. I've understood that you can't expect anything. I just served her, and she became grateful. I became very happy. And then she starts taking care of me because I don't wish anything bad for her. I don't oppose her flaws. I don't argue with her. She says something to me, I agree, although I don't agree inside. And that's it. This is how I live. And we have good, excellent relationships. And anyone who lives like that will also have excellent relationships. But when a person wants to prove their truth, that means they are attached and expect to get happiness from their loved one. A woman believes that a man should understand everything about her, and she naturally experiences great happiness when he understands her. But a man is dumb like a ram. I'm just telling you as a man. He doesn't understand anything about what a woman is like. He only understands this when he's deeply in love. When a man is in love, God opens up these abilities in him to feel everything about the woman. He feels what she needs, what she wants. He takes care of her. Oh Lord, what a good man. Why do people say bad things about him? It's unclear. But then this passes and he becomes just a man, and a woman becomes just a woman. A man needs her to understand his thoughts and views, but she can't understand them. She hears his emotions when he speaks, and those emotions are unpleasant to her. She argues with him, and he's in shock.
Thank you, I understand everything. I'll continue to tease.
Well done. Super. Thank you for your question. Excellent. We've learned a lot together with you, and everyone else has too. Next question from you, sir. Your question.
Dr. Torsunov, thank you very much for the lectures. You say a lot of good, profound things. But I have one question. There's an opinion that a man has some feminine qualities and a woman has some masculine qualities. Here's an example from my life. You talked about this today. For example, food. A woman eats a little, it's tasty, but then she eats some more. A man, on the other hand, devours everything, asks for more, eats it all. But in my case, it's the opposite. My wife eats everything, and I, on the other hand, eat little. I need the food to look good and be tasty. If it's not tasty, I won't eat it. If it looks ugly, I won't eat it.
Thank you for mentioning this.
There are also other nuances. Let me put it this way. When I lived alone, Everything was in order. Everything was in its place. But when a woman appeared, everything became a mess. These are such examples. What is your attitude? What can you say about it?
I want to say that such things happen. Everyone in life experiences reversals. When I talk about how women are structured or how men are structured, there can always be reversals. A woman can very well have qualities inherent to a man. For example, I say that a man always strives for cold and a woman for heat. But it can also happen in a family that a woman strives for cold, she's always hot, and her husband is always cold. He will always strive only for heat, he will always be cold. This is a reversal. Such things happen, it's normal, because indeed both women and men have something feminine by nature and something masculine. Sometimes a woman has a strongly expressed masculine quality, and then she finds herself a husband who has the exact opposite quality. And this always causes difficulties in life at first, but then they get used to it, and relationships become good. But if you want to talk seriously about this topic, then we'll try to figure it out. We'll talk about this topic seriously. This is quite a serious and lengthy conversation called Causes of Changes in the Character of Men and Women, or Certain Stages of These Changes. We will talk about this later. We will definitely cover this topic.
As a result, we are divorced.
Well, it's not a big deal. They say you need to find your soulmate. No. God gives a person an exam. We can pass it. We may not pass it. Didn't pass? Try again. God is kind. You just need to understand what your mistakes were. Make amends and move on in life. Until you've made amends, God will not give you your person, or will give you someone not like you want. This is the next topic.
Hello, Dr. Torsunov. I want to apologize to other listeners. Maybe someone has a more serious question. Previously, I had a categorical way of thinking. I thought that I'm a man. I earn money, and at home everything should be perfect. Dishes washed, cleanliness, and beauty everywhere. But now I realize that I probably don't do enough in this matter. I don't create all the conditions for my wife.
Is your wife sitting next to you?
Yes.
So you used to hurt her feelings a lot?
Yes.
And now you're making amends in front of me?
No, I want to understand if I've realized the correct direction of development for myself.
You have a very correct direction of development. Precisely when a man makes amends, it's a sign that he has awakened. You lived in a certain way. A man has 3 stages of development. You have now jumped over the first stage. You have opened your eyes to life. This is just great.
Thank you very much.
Is your wife happy now?
I hope so.
No, we need an exact answer. Give her the microphone. Are you happy?
Yes, absolutely.
But in fact, the wife is the reason for this awakening. Only a woman can be the reason. How did she do it? I'll tell you now about the life of this family. She made efforts for her husband's sake. She forgave him. She endured. Sometimes she lost her faith, but she still stayed by his side, and at some point he realized that he was wrong. It takes a woman a very long time to make a man understand something. Do you agree? You did everything right. Your man understood how to live correctly. And it's very difficult for a man to feel how to treat a woman correctly. It's hard for him to understand a woman. If a woman has achieved this, then a song of victory should be dedicated to her and all such women. One must learn to overcome one's fate, to endure, to continue living, to argue, to ask for forgiveness, and to move forward until the man wakes up, until he understands how to treat a woman correctly. But this requires a lot of strength and time. What other questions? Is there a question related to the lecture topic?
I don't even know if it's related to the topic or not. I don't have a husband.
Okay.
The question is that I have a fear of starting new relationships with men and beginning to live with someone. Because I have 3 children from different men. And when I imagine male discontent, that he's not satisfied with everything.
You'd kill him, right?
Yes, I mean no. I imagine that my children and I will have to adapt to the man's character. Will he accept the children?
You don't need to look for a man. Seek God. You have a big, good family. Everything is okay in your life now. You don't need to look for a man. Just pray. Seek God. That's enough for you.
But there are men who want to live with me. And I think, is this right or wrong? I don't want to. On the other hand, from a financial point of view, it's very difficult for a woman to handle everything on her own. I can't cope. A lot of debts, bailiffs, and collectors are pursuing me.
You see, everything is going according to plan. First, I told her one thing. She disputed it. Now she's telling me something completely different. I knew the conversation would go in a different direction. Okay? So you don't agree that you should stay alone for now?
I believe that everything has its price, its reward. In any case, I'll have to pay with something.
What are you planning to pay with?
I don't know what to do. If I knew, I would already be doing it.
I can tell you exactly what's better for you now. I told you to stay alone. If you had agreed with me, that would have been better for you. but you didn't agree, so you'll have to pay a different price. God wants you to break your unrestrained character. For you, it's more important now to learn to accept the will of a husband. Indeed, a woman unable to accept the will of a husband is not reasonable.
But the men who want to live with me, one has a criminal record, and not just one, the other also has problems. So it's scary to start relationships with them.
These are the kind of men you've earned.
I see.
You had better men before this, but you kicked them away. Now God is giving you worse ones because you are being punished.
I don't agree with you on this.
You disagree in vain. I understand what you're disagreeing with now, but your unrestrained character can drive any person to madness.
I understand, thank you.
You don't understand anything, give the microphone back. You have the opportunity to be happy. You just need to understand. When a woman understands the scheme, the algorithm of female happiness, she becomes happy. And for you, the algorithm of happiness is this: learn to accept the man, his will, what you just described, the necessity to adapt to his character. What is it for if everything is fine as it is? Why is this necessary? So this means an unwillingness to accept the man's will. A woman gets married. This means that she no longer lives as she used to live. She lives differently with a man. As he thinks, so she will live. But it's more peaceful for her this way. But why don't women get married? Because they don't want to change the comfort of their life, which they have, for anything else. That's why I tell such women, if you already have children and you have a good family, then stay with them. Why would you want anything else from life then? Just think about God, and God will help you in everything. But if you still say that you can't be alone, then you'll have to understand that the comfort you have now won't be there. You'll have to adapt to this person, and then he will be happy.
I agree to adapt myself, but when these men who come home and start pouring out their failures they have somewhere at work, problems with the boss, on the children.
They will definitely pour it out because that's how a person is built. One doesn't notice one's capricious behavior.
And it turns out that I set up my children with the desire to live with someone?
No, you don't set them up because children also have their own fate. You have your own fate. There are two options. Either you set up the children because they don't have a father, or you set up the children by having a man who breaks them a little. In any case, you set them up. Do you think it's easier for them without a father than with a father who torments them?
It's such an ambiguous question because the fathers of my children don't communicate with them. I've been told before that I arranged it this way. I didn't do it. I had the impression that I was imposing my children on their fathers. They don't even know sometimes if they're alive or not.
You should understand that there are 3 stages of approaching victory over fate. The first stage of approaching victory over fate is called fate is to blame. Not some person is to blame, but fate. The second stage of approach is I am to blame. That means I am to blame for everything that happened in my life. You need to understand this.
I agree with this. I know exactly where and when.
You don't agree? You agree, but you don't understand it. Be quiet now, you can't argue with me. And the third stage of victory over fate is when a person really feels that everything they received in life, everything that happened, is fair. That means they fully accept their entire fate as justice, and from that moment they can pray. And then in prayer, the first stage of victory over fate is when peace comes to the heart, everything will be fine. The second stage is influencing the situation, when I now know exactly how to behave with a man. And the third stage is changes in the heart of the person you're living with. But you're not even at the first approach to the possibility of defeating fate, because in your heart you're very firmly convinced that you're not to blame for what happened, and you can't argue with me now. It's useless because I know for sure that this is the case. You need to move in this direction. You need to deal with what happened in your life. A lot of injustice has happened and is happening, but it's all because that's what's meant for you. Then when you understand this, you'll be able to calm down and feel in prayer that everything will be fine, and then you can start meeting men. You're not ready for this now. I still maintain my opinion that it's better for you to live with someone than alone, because you're not spiritually developed enough to accept fate and be self-sufficient in relationships with your children. Although there are 2 options for a woman who has several children, either to live alone and be satisfied with this life or to get married. Both are good for her. But to waver in your consciousness back and forth is not good at all. You need to establish yourself in one of 2 directions. But the first direction, living alone, is only possible if you pray hard to God and engage in spiritual practice. This direction is called abstention. It's very difficult. Do you have any more questions for me?
No, thank you.
Well, let's have you, the lady there.
Hello, Dr. Torsunov. Thank you very much for the lectures. I've been listening to them for a very long time. I have a question that's been bothering me, but I won't ask it now. But there's another deep question that I want to resolve, not so much for myself, but for my daughter. She's 18 years old.
Well, will she listen to my answer?
She would like it to happen that way.
Does she listen to my lectures?
She doesn't listen to your lectures.
Well, how will she hear my answer then?
I would like to ask a question now and then explain a little to her.
Does she listen to you?
Yes, she listens to me.
Okay, go ahead and ask.
A long time ago, I left my husband due to serious circumstances and then tried to at least establish simple communication with him. He's in another city. And he has blocked me. He categorically doesn't want to communicate with me, although he communicates wonderfully with my mother.
Well, because he was very hurt by what happened, and he still hasn't processed that pain.
I apologized to him.
It's useless because when a person loves someone, apologies don't work.
Well, he already has another family.
So what? It doesn't matter. If a person loved someone, they can't forget about it.
Now the daughter needs to be sent to college, and I would like for him and me to jointly make efforts for her education. And, well, I would like him to really forgive me, because I forgave him long ago for everything he did.
Well, I can't help here. That means you're now somehow communicating with God through me, probably. But a person forgives by their own will, and usually with enormous efforts from the one who committed a serious act against them. You see, I'll just explain to you now why this is happening. The reason for what's happening is that the person who behaved with you, as you say, I feel he was very firm, harsh with you in the relationship. This often happens against the background of a very deep love for a woman. When a man loves a woman strongly, he wants to subdue her strongly. It manifests itself like this.
Yes, I agree.
So, and when a woman stops him, disciplines him, tries to change him, she's doing the right thing. Gradually, she brings such a man to a normal state, and he remains very happy with her. This is the path chosen by the girl to whom I dedicated the song. Now your case, you just endured, and when your patience ran out, you simply cut it off, and despite the fact that he tried to get you back, you still didn't return.
He didn't try to get me back.
Well, he didn't even try because he was probably in such shock that he couldn't even do it.
Yes, he was in shock. I agree.
Now you want him to forgive you, but understand this. You haven't experienced the feelings he went through, and if you had experienced these feelings, you wouldn't be able to forgive either.
Well, I endured for a very long time. I forgave him.
But this endurance is not a way to live at all. It's evil towards man.
I forgave him and tried to talk to him. My mother talked to him. His parents talked to him.
This is not enough. With a man, you need to learn to be strict and punish him in measured doses, not once and for all.
Okay, then the next question. How could one punish a man who beats?
Live separately, set conditions.
I left. He called me back. My mother came.
You should have set conditions before returning.
We set conditions. His mother set conditions. I set conditions. His relatives warned him. I warned him. We had conversations with this person for 2.5 years. After this, I can't get married.
Let's accept this fate.
I have accepted it.
You see, you have such a fate because in the past, being in a male body, you behaved the same way and now you got this result.
Okay, thank you.
Wait, we're not finished yet? You can only change your life through knowledge. The entire conversation I started with you was only for you to gain knowledge about what he feels. Of course, I understand that it's more important now for you to find a husband rather than for him to pay for the child's education, because paying or not paying is a person's choice.
Well, at least for him to start communicating with me about our child, about our daughter.
If you want to know my predictions, I can tell you.
Yes, I want to. I'm ready.
It's practically impossible. I can only give 3, 4, 5% chance that he will ever start communicating with you. Someday, not just about education now, but ever in general.
Well, okay, let it be someday.
Maybe it's better to close this topic. You just need to understand that as long as you keep thinking about this, you won't get married. Because right now you're trying to get something from your husband, but you should be seeking from God.
I haven't been bothering him for a long time now.
I understand. I'm talking about deep things now, about your heart.
I would like to do this for my daughter, because she's very upset about it.
Do you want to get married?
Yes, I would like to get married.
Then do it for your daughter.
Okay.
You need to understand that you need support in your life now. And that's what you should be thinking about, not about what's fair or unfair that a person who has long forgotten about you is doing to you.
But he remembers the offense as far as I understand.
He will remember the offense for the rest of his life, and he will never forget it. You don't have the power to make him forget it. It's impossible for you.
Okay, I'll leave this issue. I'll close it completely.
You won't close it because you've confused a person with God. When you believe in God, then this issue will close itself and you'll be able to get married easily after that.
I'm trying to believe. I pray every day. I go to church. Life is changing now.
That's great, but only when you truly believe in God, then all this will happen. I'm telling you precisely. At the moment when you believe in Him, you'll have a new support. And then you'll stop worrying about whether your husband wants to communicate with you or not, whether he wants to help his daughter or not, because you'll feel help from another source. And at that moment, you'll open up to the possibility of getting married, because right now you're closed off due to your hope for help going in the wrong direction.
Well, possibly, yes.
Not possibly, but 100% certain. A woman cannot marry anyone while she's waiting for help from somewhere else. Because when a woman starts seeking help from God, then she becomes beautiful, self-sufficient. She doesn't need anything else from life, and only such a woman can be taken in marriage. No one will marry an unhappy, exhausted person who is expecting something.
Well, such periods are already happening in my life. For some reason, more work comes into it. It just falls on me. I'm kind of coping with these responsibilities now I'm carrying a child. That's a different matter.
You're carrying a child?
Yes, I'm pregnant now.
And you're alone? So there was a man, a married one, right?
Yes, a married man. When I told him I was pregnant, he said it was terrible. We had been communicating for 5 years. For a month and a half, I was telling him that there would be no abortion. He tried to persuade me to have an abortion.
So then you understood what his love was worth, right?
Well, I said that I would give birth. I'm keeping the child.
Did you understand what his love was worth?
No.
No? Okay, I'll explain it to you now. Remember, love between people is worth something if God wants it. But if the love between them is unlawful, meaning they decided themselves that they would live this way, and God doesn't want it, then that love is worth nothing. It's just empty, because love between a man and a woman is very selfish by nature, and only God fills it with conscience, purity, mutual responsibility, and mutual obligations. But building love with someone else's man is not what God wants, believe me. God definitely didn't want that. And that's why you've received this punishment now. Stay away from this man while you're pregnant, because otherwise your disappointment, now the second one, will transfer to your child. The child now needs only faith and purity. When a woman is carrying a child, her main duty is to stay calm and pray.
Well, I'm not even going to work now. I did everything to not go there at all, and I'm more engaged in spiritual practice.
Great, excellent.
I communicate more with my mom, with parents, with friends. I have a lot of them. Now I came here to talk to you.
All right, we've decided everything. Continue. You're doing everything right, but don't take a single step in that direction anymore.
Actually, we talked a long time ago when I said I would give birth to the child. I haven't even called or communicated since then, and sometimes, of course, I want to know, but I just forbid myself.
That's right. You don't need this person. That's it. This was your mistake.
Yes, thank you very much.
So, you see, it's very important to know that a person needs strength. Life is full of difficulties because we don't know what's right. We have many misconceptions. We tend to do foolish things because we trust this energy of infatuation. We don't know the infatuation that arises between an unmarried man and woman, and when they both agree with this infatuation, then it is sanctioned by God. And if they both don't agree and someone says, I agree, and someone says, I don't need this, then you shouldn't trust this infatuation. Even if people are not married, let's say you're both in love, but he says, I don't need this. That's it. It's not sanctioned by God. God sanctions infatuation only when people agree and take responsibility for each other. But if one person is married and the other is not, and they develop an infatuation, it will never be sanctioned by God. Never, my dear friends. And this infatuation is a poison that will destroy 3 people at once. First and foremost, it will destroy the girl who is communicating with a man who has a wife. The man who did this will be destroyed, and the woman who allowed this situation, who didn't keep her husband, who didn't take care of him so much that he started a relationship with another woman. No one gets happiness from this, but we don't know about it. We have no knowledge. We think that if there's infatuation, then everything is right and good. And he will then sing songs about how there's nothing good with his wife, but everything is good with you. And he will also mess with your head and feed you lies. And you will believe him because infatuation really exists. But if a person knows God's laws, they will never agree to this. Never. That's why knowledge stands in the first place in a person's life. Please study how to live correctly, learn to understand how this world works. You should never do what God doesn't want. And you need to understand this principle very clearly. One family, one faith, one country. A person shouldn't change anything. Any changes lead to terrible alterations in their life. For example, if a person changes their country, it takes an average of 5 years to get used to new life, and not everyone adapts. When I was in Los Angeles, I talked to 150 Russians and asked them, and they all said the same thing, how difficult it was to get used to a foreign culture. The same was in Germany when I communicated with people there. It's such a difficult task that it's better to stay here and not leave. Here you can accept everything because you live here. You know everything. It's all familiar to you. The same goes for a person who thinks, I'll leave my wife now, and then it will be so great for me. I'll leave my wife and it will be better for me. Because he believes in infatuation. He thinks I'll have such a happy, bright life. It's such an illusion, a great illusion. If a person has faith, one already serves God, and then suddenly one likes something else somewhere, and one thinks, now I'll change my faith, everything will be great in my life. This is a complete illusion. Because when a person does something that God doesn't like, they will never be happy, even if they like someone. That's why it's necessary to clearly distinguish, and there's such a concept as conscience. Conscience is exactly what is written in the scriptures and what a person has in their heart, and this is the thing you need to be able to listen to. And it's not easy to listen to it, and therefore, in order to hear one's conscience, a person should have good friends who can tell them the truth, or a good wife who can tell the truth, or a good husband who can tell the truth. And it's even better to have a mentor whom you will definitely listen to, because you may or may not listen to everyone else, but you'll certainly have to listen to a mentor. Therefore, a person's life truly becomes protected if they develop in their faith to such an extent that God gives them a mentor, meaning an elder in life.